Hello, hello, hello. I'm so excited, y'all. Welcome to the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show. And I am so excited because we are going to get into one of my favorite topics in the whole world, coaching. We're going to be talking about becoming a coach and coaching as a leadership tool. And listen, let me tell you, I am so excited to welcome the guest today because he's just perfect. He's absolutely perfect for this topic. And I will tell you why right after this. Dr. Mickey Parsons.
Kiki, great to see you. And I love your introduction, by the way. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, see, we doing some things over here on the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show.
Very impressive.
Awesome. Well, I am so excited, first of all, to welcome you to the show. And secondly, because the topic that we're going to be talking about is something that you and I both are super passionate about.
Absolutely. I think that's what we bonded over, right?
And-
Coaching psychology, evidence-based coaching.
Evidence-based coaching, which I hope we get into. And so I want to tell everybody like how we absolutely met, and so that they can have a context. And so you are, and you'll get a chance to tell everybody about yourself, but I decided that I was going to go to school and get my master's in positive psychology coaching. And when I showed up at Life University, there you were. Right there, you were. You were my professor. I don't know if you knew it at the time, but I was like, okay, yeah, we've met now, and you're never getting rid of me.
Well, thank heavens that came about.
And so you became my mentor. And then the reason why I ended up getting my PhD is partly because of you and partly because of my husband, because I don't know if you remember, you kept on saying, okay, now it's time to go get your PhD, and I'm like, don't say that. I'm here because I'm trying to avoid a PhD. And you're like, no, I feel it. I see it.
We wouldn't have the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show if you didn't have your PhD, right? So it was written in the stars for sure.
I love it. I love it. So I went on to school and got my PhD in business psych. And then I was able to come home. Now I am also teaching alongside you in the Masters of Positive Psychology program at Life University. So now we're also colleagues. So you definitely can't get rid of me.
I have to tell you, it's a good thing we're not therapists, right? There's so many multiple roles in there, but as coaches, we're safe, and it has absolutely transitioned to friend and colleague, and I'm grateful for both. So thank you.
Me too. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I think you did a better job than I will, but I am a master certified coach. I am the owner of the Workplace Coach here in Atlanta, Georgia. I started coaching in 1999. I know that takes me a little bit. I think it was the year after the International Coaching Federation actually began. Is the year I coached. And I'd met Thomas Leonard, and we had some conversations. He was kind of the founder of Coach University, which was the first coach training school, right? And actually was instrumental in starting the International Coaching Federation. And so I thought, what a cool way to combine my love for psychology and for business. I was the CEO of a chamber of commerce down in Tampa, Florida at the time, and was like, boom, I'm hooked. I started Coach U training immediately. I started thinking about opening a business with some colleagues down there. And as I say, the rest is history. Now, I started teaching at Life University in their undergrad certificate program in about 2011. And Dr. Shook and Samples asked me to come on board and help them, along with Cherry Collier, to create the Masters, right? The online Masters of Coaching and Positive Psychology. So that launched in 2014, and it has been awesome. I have this passion for developing senior leaders. I was a manager for the first time at age 22, which is where that came from. I think they thought I was 35. I just sounded small and looked older than I might have been, right? But
Oh,
yeah,
thanks,
I've
Mo.
been doing that since 2014 and have just developed this passion for helping co-create great coaches in the world. And that's been
Oh,
the fun of working with you and everyone at the university.
I love it. I love it. Well, speaking to that, right? What is your biggest strength, aka your superpower?
You know, I actually kind of go back and forth on that because, we take the VIA and
Mhm.
the Clifton strengths, and we think about all those items when I think about my superpower. But the reality is, I come back to coaching is my superpower.
Ooh, that's
I mean, when I think of the positivity and the
right.
love and the hopefulness and the achiever and all those other strengths, it's like, boy, does it not align with the ICF definition of coaching? Because what we're really doing is using all those strengths
Mm-hmm.
to optimize human flourishing. So
Yeah, I love
that's
that.
good
What
coaching.
what better strength to have than a conversation about coaching than to have coaching as your strength? so,
Absolutely, right?
so I love it. I love it. Okay, so if you are here joining us live on the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show, go ahead and drop your name and where you're tuning in from in the chat, and we may be able to have a chance to shout you out. Drop your questions and comments there as well. Okay, so we're talking all about coaching, but there may be people who don't really know the true definition of coaching and what some of the benefits are. And so, I want you to tell us what coaching really is.
Yeah, it's a great question. There are many definitions of coaching, right? And
Mhm.
one of the things I think we both found in our dissertation work was a lack of agreement
Yeah.
on those definitions of coaching, depending on what lens we're looking through, right? Is it
Mhm,
business,
mhm.
psychology, or something else? But in reality, the International Coach Federation says coaching is maximizing personal and professional potential, right? So it kind of goes back to that human flourishing, if you will. And so that's the definition that we sort of lean into. I think the benefits of coaching are many, right? I mean, I sort of used to think that coaching just helped to accelerate achievement of goals, right? When I first
Mhm.
started coaching, I hired a coach for myself early on. And that was one of the key benefits that I saw. It just helped me to create synergy and move things forward. But I think the reality is it's more than that.
Yeah.
Only about 5% of us can, come up with that vision that pulls us forward and walk the path toward achievement. The
Yeah.
other 95% need us. We need
Yes.
coaches,
Yeah.
partners who can do these things. So I think coaching does help accelerate progress, goals, achievement, but it also helps create sense of well-being,
Yeah.
better satisfaction in life, right? It almost can become a part of your support team that
Yeah.
helps you to achieve way more than you ever thought you could.
I love that because I honestly think that everybody in the world needs a coach, right? Especially if
Absolutely,
you need a coach. And
yes.
I mean, because it has so many benefits. And I think for people who have never had coaching before, you can't
Mm,
even imagine it,
yeah,
right? So if you've ever had therapy before, then
correct.
that's a type of support, and
That's
coaching is a different type of support. And so I feel like we all need somebody to
mm,
support us, somebody who's a professional who really understands what it is. Because a lot of times we're like, oh, I got my sister, I got my cousin, what I'm saying? And I'm like, no, no,
That's right. There is a distinct quality difference, right? In someone who is
right.
trained to do this
It
versus someone
is.
who's, well, I'm pretty good at spouting my opinion off and telling you what I think too, but
That's the thing.
you're not going
That's
to
the
pay me
thing.
for that.
And it's
Exactly.
really interesting because, I come from a social work background. So my background, hey, Jordan, thanks for joining us live today. Um, I started my background as a social worker. And so for me, I'm like, okay, when I found out about coaching, I was like, oh, I know how to do that. Like that's
Mm,
easy. I'm a social worker. And so for a little while, I operated under the
mhm.
social work banner. And
Yeah.
then I was like, well, Jamil, my husband, kept on saying, well, you might want to go to school. And I'm like, I know
Mhm.
what I'm doing. But when I got to school, I was like, oh my God, I have been doing it all wrong because I'm
Right.
telling people what to do. And that is not coaching, that is consulting. So,
Correct. That's right.
You know. Hey,
Yeah.
April, thanks for joining us.
Now, as I would say, there are brands of coaching that we probably agree upon, where if you happen to be a health and wellness coach, maybe an executive coach,
Right.
maybe a career coach, there are times when we share our expertise with the client, but we do that with hands open, and they have the ultimate authority of choosing whether to embrace learning, new information, action, and so forth. It really is about kind of creating that synergy and letting the client lead.
Absolutely. And I love that. And so, speaking of those different times, let's talk about some of the different types of coaching. So, you mentioned executive coaching, health and wellness coaching, life coaching. What are the differences between these
Wow.
types of coaching? I know.
Wow. Super question, right? And I think the marketplace has questions about that now, too. But I will say, way back, almost 24 or 25 years ago, when I started down this path, we were all life coaches. That was it, right? Everybody who graduated from Coach U and then CTI, or those 2 or 3 colleges or training groups at the time, were just life coaches. It didn't matter if we were doing life coaching with individuals, with relationships, with corporate, with executives, did not matter, right?
Right.
But it is not a one size fits all world, as we know. And so what has begun to happen is specialization, right? And I actually think that's great, because we have a passion for leadership, business, and so we tend to work with those senior leaders and executives and corporations. Other people may want to work with attorneys or nurses, or work with people making decisions about whether to have children or not, right? So there's so many brands: health and wellness, finance. I hate to tell you, I want to kind of roll my eyes in the back of my head. Cuddle coaches, right? I don't know that one's legit, but there's almost every imaginable type of coach. Now, some of them probably are better equipped than others. I think, as we know, all coaches are not created equal.
This is true.
There are people like us who have devoted our life to coaching, to this emerging profession that we have in the world. And then there are others who maybe just took a 2-hour grow model course, right? and hang out their shingle as coach as well. So I will tell you, I don't hear it as much as I used to, because certification is becoming so prolific and necessary, right? But I would say that the first decade that I coached, I heard on a weekly basis, wow, you're different. I've worked with a coach before, and it was nothing like this, right? Which is both a compliment and not so great.
Which is all of this is interesting, because I want us to get into somewhat of a sticky topic. Do you think that you need certification to become a coach?
So I kind of let the cat out of the bag on that one, didn't I? In my reaction. But yes. So I believe it depends on the role, right? If you are, I don't know, in a basic example, you're an LPN and you're a Lamaze coach, and it is a super narrow window of what you know how to do. Maybe not, right? If you're using motivational interviewing and that's the only coaching skill you're using, maybe not. But as a general rule, absolutely. Now, I do think it's okay to begin coaching before, maybe before your education's complete, and definitely before certification. As we know, certification takes years in most cases, right? And I think, at the university, with our master's in positive coaching psychology, we encourage people to get a mentor coach themselves and begin coaching. But let people know, right? There's no shame in saying, I'm a student coach. I'm working on my master's degree in coaching psychology. I'm an apprentice, right? I mean, if I think back through the history of professionals, I'm thinking about my stepdad and brother-in-law who had 5 years of internship as electricians, right? And so that level of learning, I think, just earns us more respect. So I do know a few schools and a few instructors who are like, no, don't tell them you're a student. No. Truth in advertising, right? And
Yeah.
that's not good for the profession that you want
It's not. Transparency is key, in
to.
everything. And right, like you got to give people choice. And that's what coaching is already, right? Like you're partnering with somebody and then they have choice on what they want to
Yes.
take from that, relationship and from that conversation. And so I I'm very, I'm very pro, coaching certification coaching school because I really think that there are a lot of coaches out there that don't necessarily know what coaching really is, right? Like they just think they know and they don't. And I think that anything we want to do well, we should get trained on it. That's just period, right? Like just get trained on it. And so I think people should be on the lookout if you're looking for a coach. One of the questions I ask now, I'm like, oh, where'd you get your coach training at? Right? Because some people don't
Yes.
know to ask
Yeah.
that. So
And Kiki, one of the really interesting things that has changed, I know you and I were talking about this recently. We were on campus together, and is the shift within the past decade, and in particular during the pandemic, there's a huge push toward coach certification, right?
yes, very
It
much.
used to be when I started coaching, nobody knew what coaching was. They're like, is
Right.
that little league or what is that? What type of coach are you on the field? But even in the corporate world, right?
Mhm.
I mean, back 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, people were saying like, certification's a nice to have. Coach
Right.
training's a nice to have.
Right.
That has gone from about 37, 38%
Yeah.
to approaching 90% of corporations
Yeah.
that utilize coaching heavily going, yes,
Yeah. I want to be
necessary,
certified.
right?
Necessary. Even when I've looked at jobs out there, they're all saying they want some type of certification in
Yes.
coaching. But here's the beautiful thing. Now you can get a job as a coach, right? Like you can get a job. I remember when I first
Absolutely.
started, there was like no coaching jobs. You had to start a business, right?
That's right. That's right.
Well, now you can look on LinkedIn or whatever, and they have coaching as jobs, and I think that that's super cool.
It's amazing. I bet I get 3 announcements a week
Mhm.
looking for some sort of senior leadership coach or executive
Yep.
coach within an organization just from LinkedIn. Go to indeed.com and other places, and there are just a ton of them, which is very exciting, right? Some of them, if you think of like Coach Hub and some of those groups, you can go in, you can get your experience, you can go in and get your certifications while you're building your business if you want to do that.
Exactly.
If not, work in the HR, human resources, learning and development, leadership development arm of an
Mhm.
organization for life, which I
Yes,
think is absolutely fantastic that we're
sure.
seeing that level of embracement of coaching.
Me too. I love it because that makes it better for us. It makes it better, and it's creating an industry.
It's here to stay,
Yeah.
right? That is reality. I think
Yeah.
even 25 years ago, when I was eyeballing coaching, was it a fad? I mean, it was in all the magazines and news shows, but that
Mhm.
was always the question mark.
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
Not quite
Yeah.
sure. Felt a little bit like just an individual self-help guru.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're right. It's here to stay. And there are not so what does it take to become a coach, right? So what does it take to become a coach? Because as I was looking for the right program, there were only two that
Mhm.
offered masters in positive psychology, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so this may be a two-part question. Okay, so first of all, what is positive psychology coaching, right?
Mhm.
And then what does it take to be, a coach, period?
Really briefly, I think, positive psychology coaching embraces the theoretical framework of positive psychology, right? And it's neo-humanism, right? It's sort of Maslow and Carl Rogers brought forward with a great research base. And
Yes.
so there are tools and techniques and interventions that help us sort of do what we do. So positive psychology is all about helping people to flourish, embrace their strengths and their values, and you know create positive emotions, do all
Yeah.
the create meaning, right, in their
Yeah.
lives. And so
Mhm.
that is such a Dr. Seligman said it himself in his book Flourish, and from the stage many times, but it's a perfect alignment to give coaching a scientific and theoretical backbone, right,
Yes.
was his
Yes.
word. And so you know the International Coach Federation has absolutely embraced positive psychology as well. I went to a Science of Coaching out in Arizona 8 years ago, maybe, and I think everyone on the stage was a PhD related to positive psychology,
I
right?
love it.
So, and then a few MBAs, of course, mixed in there too, which is awesome. But I think, the whole coach training piece, how do you become a coach, is becoming clearer every day, and that
Mhm.
really is thanks to the hard work of the International Coaching Federation.
Yeah.
They've been about this for a long time, and they've recently, since the end of 2019, they've updated ethics and
Yeah.
core competencies for coaching, and the metrics, right, the markers that we use, and accreditation for all their schools and so forth. And so they have really been a force behind this evolving revolution of coaching.
Yeah.
And but it's not just getting a business permit either. A
Right.
lot of people in those early days would go to downtown courthouse or wherever they lived, get their permit, pay their $85 or whatever, and say, I'm a coach.
Right.
Right, we know a
Right.
lot of those, right? And but now with the International Coach Federation, we both have our MCCs, Master Certified Coach designation.
Yep.
That is sort of the pinnacle right
Yep.
now of coach certification worldwide. And it takes 200 hours of coach education minimum, right? What
Yep.
is it? 2,500 minimum
2,500.
paid hours. That takes a long time to get,
Y'all,
right?
did y'all hear that? Hold up. Let us pause for one minute. 1 minute. Okay.
Yes.
To become a master certified coach through the International Coach Federation, you need at least a minimum of 200 coaching hours and 2,500. Did y'all hear me? 2,500 paid coaching hours. So
A lot.
that means a lot.
It really does. Back in my day, the PCC was 1,500 hours. They've moved it to 500 with recently, which I think is a better entry level point.
Yeah.
But there's only about 3%. The last numbers I heard of folks getting their MCCs, and it feels like it's more people who are teaching, right, and doing different things in the world. But it takes a lot. And in addition, just to those hours, as we know, you also have to have mentoring. Right,
Yes.
we often choose to have a supervision period as well,
Mhm.
or maybe ongoing. I've worked with 3 different coaches for the last 25 plus years, which has absolutely been amazing for me. Plus, there's the examinations, right? We also have to have those fun oral and written examinations. So, to commit to the profession of coaching is a long-term investment. It's a lot of work, but I think it pays off because you're getting that recognition within the corporate space, right? If you go down the job market, or if you hang out your own shingle to become an entrepreneur, you need that credibility. You need something to kind of distinguish you, right?
Yeah, no, you definitely do. And I think that is, I always think that if you're going to do something, why not do it well? So why not do it well? So if you're going to become a coach, why not go through the process of actually becoming a coach and doing all the things that you need to do to thrive in that space? And that's where I was when I was starting my coaching career. I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right and I'm going to do it well, and I want to reach the top. And so I think that that's super important to do. And then we found positive psychology, right? We fell in love with, the thriving and the flourishing and how do you live your best life. And I think that was like, oh, this is what I love. This is what I already do.
Perfect alignment, right? It really is. It's like, yes. And I will say people resonate with that or they don't, right? Sometimes they don't. There are plenty of people using other theoretical models, cognitive behavioral psychology, et cetera. The funny thing is, I think everybody uses psychological models, adult learning theories, all these sort of things that maybe they don't know that they. I used to have a coach who worked with my team. She was an MBA, right? And she's like, "No, coaching is only business, only business." And so we were doing some team coaching. I made little notes, and I was like, "Well, that came from this theory. This is what this intervention was. This is what this is called." And she goes, "I had no idea," right? That coaching, we use a lot of those theoretical frameworks from psychology and coaching. And that's why it sometimes gets a little confused with therapy and other types of helping.
Right. Well, speaking of that, how does a person know if coaching is better than therapy, right? Because we always get that question like, what's coaching? What's therapy? So how does a person know?
And that's a really good question. I think, I think coaching has always had to work to distinguish itself
Mhm.
between therapy, consulting, and other kind of helping professions, right?
Yes.
And I think a lot of people probably need both. Some of the research suggests that about 40 to 50%, right, of people getting coaching what I think the phrase is, could also benefit from therapy, right?
There you
Some
go.
clinical work. And I just tell everybody that you'd probably need both on your support team.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the reality is there is a qualitative distinction. We are certified as coaches.
Mhm.
Therapists are state licensed, and that license, when it comes to fiduciary responsibility, supersedes a certification,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
therapists, therapists can do things we cannot. Let's
Correct.
face it, right?
Correct.
They can work in that clinical side. They may be working to heal trauma, to help someone navigate diagnosable issues, and all sorts of things that just would be risky for a coach to do, right?
Mhm.
Because we're assuming that everybody is, what do we say, creative, resourceful, and whole, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that if they need that deeper clinical work, they're getting it from someone else. Now, I've certainly had lots and lots of conversations with my clients, EAP folks, or their
Mhm.
clinician over time, to make sure what we're doing is in tandem supporting their evolution.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
do you find that you refer a lot of your clients to therapy
I
as well as
don't. But I find that most of my clients are in therapy,
coaching?
right? So I feel like people are understanding it more and more that, what you get from, therapy may be on this, much deeper level. And then what you get from your coach is the
Mhm.
ability to go from where you are to where you want to be, right? And
Absolutely.
so I feel like people are really starting to understand that. And I do think people have both. And they're like, you know what? I got my therapist over here, but I also know that I'm here, but I want to be there. And
Yes.
a coach is better suited to get me to that place. And so I haven't had a lot of referral in the sense of that because most of them come with it anyway.
That's awesome. I would say when I first was training and did more life coaching,
Mhm.
it seemed like at that point I was referring a lot to therapists and to
Really?
EAPs. I would say in today's world, there are occasional, like, hey, I've got a child with ADHD. We think, do you know someone
Right.
who could do an assessment? And I think with the corporate world, though, they're so connected to their employee assistance
They are.
programs, it just makes it easy.
Well, I also think that the stigma of therapy is being, you know,
Yeah.
resolved, right? Like I see so many commercials, even on like, all the social medias about therapy, and everybody's like, I go to therapy. So it's like this cool thing. We like to go to
Yeah,
therapy, right? And so I'm
it's true.
like, okay, the times are changing.
Big time.
And
Big
so I
time.
think that's what
Yes.
that contributes to the fact that people are like not so ashamed of therapy that they can go get it, and then they can also then get what they need in terms of coaching.
I think that's our gift to therapists, to be quite honest. All of my counseling friends, and I was an old EAP guy, chemical dependency counselor, LPC, back long, long ago, and then went into the corporate world. But a lot of my counselor friends, I were sort of like, oh, coaching, quite kind of questioning it. Why
Uh-huh.
why were the fees so high? All
Mm,
these different things. But I also think now, because coaching has become so accepted
yeah.
across the board, that we've been good for therapists, because
Yeah.
people are like, well, getting help is getting help. What do I need to get help for? And that determines who I go to,
You're
right?
welcome, therapist. Yeah, you're welcome. Well, let's just
I
hit
need a
on
whole support team myself.
right. A whole support team, right? So, what about how do you then use coaching as a leadership development tool, right? Because there are so many leaders in organizations, and me and you do a lot of workplace coaching. You like what I did there? So we do a lot of coaching in the workplace. Um, but I think it's like we talked about, it's getting more and more prevalent and relative. But how can you use it as a leadership development tool?
Hmm. I think it is. it was where leadership development began, right? And where coaching began was with senior leaders, kind of informal in the boardrooms way back when. So I think coaching is so powerful. In the 90s, when coaching began to really gain momentum, the internet was around. The world became very small. People didn't have time to always go get an MBA or an executive MBA. They needed to come up with solutions fast, and so coaches were there to help facilitate that.
Yeah.
And so I think we have probably grown and have more research in that corporate side of coaching than ever before. And it's interesting, there's another side to this. We may have to have another show, Kiki.
I know.
To talk about, coaching, right, has really become the preferred style of people management and leadership throughout the Western world.
Yes.
And that's huge. Leader as coach. And what we know about that is it promotes well-being as well as productivity. So it's really a win-win-win for coaches, right? For the managers, the people, and the entire organization.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to see what's happening. During the pandemic, we actually saw it more deeply embraced than ever before.
Oh my gosh, yes.
If you were a command and control, type of leader, you were out or told to change from the companies we work with. And those who had good, solid coaching skills are rising to the top.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when the pandemic hit, and with one of our companies, we helped them navigate, moving from in person to virtual, right? Like it was stressful for so many people, but how to manage that and continue to grow as a leader was something that they needed. And coaching helped them actually get there, right? And I love it. And I always talk about like coaching in the standpoint of like, no, training is going nowhere, right? But I don't think, I mean, you can tell me what you think, but I don't think training is complete without coaching.
100%.
I think that you're doing your company a disservice if you do not introduce coaching into your leadership development.
Yes. And absolutely. We will not even do training anymore. I won't do training anymore without coaching embedded in the process. Now, some of my coaches will do it if they work closely with the senior leaders and they and the folks who report up to them, they may take on coaching, sort of over the 45 days or 90 days. And we'll give that a try, but often that doesn't happen, or they're not often trained well as coaches, right? But those that are, does better. But 100%, I think the research is something like, we go to a training today, 90 days from now, we won't remember 27% of it. We won't remember the facilitator's name or what the topic was, probably, right? If we do, we're ahead of the curve. But if you embed that coaching, you're hitting 77, 78, 79% retention 90 days later. And you're applying it, which is the value, right?
Which is the whole purpose, right? Like that's the whole purpose of it. And so anytime I'm talking to organizations, I'm like, I want to help you become, and create a coaching culture, right? Like a coaching culture. And I think that is super important. And myself, in my company, we do a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion coaching. But I always say that diversity, equity, and inclusion coaching is leadership coaching, because you cannot have leadership development without diversity. Right?
Absolutely. I agree 1,000%. You're exactly right. It's interesting. I sort of just say to a lot of folks, well, call us next year, right? I mean, let's do this right, because I also feel like it begins to be our reputation.
It does. Yeah, it does. Oh my God, look at this. I mean, look, it just flew by real quick. Oh my gosh.
Should we just start over?
Right. Or we might have part 2, right? So
this is great.
I'm so excited. Well, why don't you tell everybody what's going on with you and how they can get in touch with you?
We are working on our website. So I'm going to say go there March 1st, right?
Okay.
We're reinventing the website. So go to theworkplacecoach.com March 1st. Put it in your calendar, because right? we're doing a lot of really fun things. We're working on some new programming. I'm working right now to finalize an executive presence e-learning program that we'll do by webinar. We'll do it live on company locations, things of that nature.
Okay.
I'm working on updating some other workbooks and trainings, and also, can we pre-announce what we're going to do this summer?
Absolutely.
So Dr. Ramsey and I are putting our brains together, I guess you could say. And, we both mentor, right? We teach and mentor aspiring coaches through the Masters in Positive Psychology at Life University, and mentor on our own and supervise coaches that are going for certification and building their businesses. But we're going to put together a 12-week master coach and mentor program. So excited about that. Tentatively July, August, September. It will be a small group. So if you want to be on the apply to be in that list, let us know.
Yep.
But that's going to be awesome. It will be virtual, right?
Yes, it'll be virtual.
I hope to be at the beach part of that time. So we'll see what happens.
I know. I'm so excited about that. Like, this is going to be just so good for coaches, and you get CCEs as well. You'll get CCEs for it as a coach, and you'll get your mentor coaching hours as well. So it's going to be super fun. We're a dynamic duo here, honey.
Absolutely. Is that Superman, Wonder Woman, or Batgirl, Batboy? I don't know. We'll have to figure that out.
We can figure it out.
Because we'll have to get T-shirts, right? But I will say that people will get, I think it's about 28 CCEs total, because you will get your 10 mentoring credits if you're in the ICF, or you also will get the 18 standalone CCEUs. So lots and lots of fun. We're also looking at doing a future one that would be more corporate centered as well. So if you're on the corporate side of things and you have interest in growing your coaching skills, let us know.
Let us know. Well, this has been super, super fun. So leave us with one thing that you want to share with everybody about this topic, becoming a coach and coaching as a leadership development tool.
Yeah, I think that you should just try coaching, right?
Come on.
I think that's the most powerful thing on the planet. And if you want to try it for free, you probably can call Dr. Kiki or Dr. Mickey, and we can set you up with a student who will give you a free session or three, right?
Yeah.
But I would say it is like, if you've never worked with a great consultant, a great marketing person, a great communicator, a great therapist, whatever, a great, healthcare provider, when you find that, it just feels magical.
It does.
And if you find a great coach, they will help you create magic. So that's what I'd like to just think about this. Give it a shot. Now not everybody's going to be as amazing as Kiki and I, of course, but there are great coaches in the world, and there are amazing coaches in Metro Atlanta. Absolutely. I always feel like we're so blessed that we are probably, if not one of the hubs of great coaches in the entire world.
Yeah, I love it. Whoop, whoop. Go ATL.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Dr. Kiki Ramsey Show. If you were listening today, thank you so much for joining us live. Share this with a friend. This may be somebody's calling, right? This may be your calling. And in that vein, Dr. Mickey says, try coaching, right? Try coaching. We love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, see you later.
Goodbye.